Getting things set up, guys. So I'm gonna wait about a minute for everybody to kind of get in. If they want to, whatever. That's up to you guys. I just figure I'd put it out there. But how's everybody's night doing? I hope it's good. I just want to make sure this is working. Should be. Should very much be working. Here we go. Okay, cool. Just pulling it up on my laptop Reno. Thank you guys for doing this. Usually I am a little bit more prepared to be able to be doing this sort of stuff. But just time gets away, so I wasn't able to do it. But I definitely wanted to get around to reviewing this record. So if this isn't the typical format, or if you like this format more, let me know. I will definitely kind of switch it up. There are some albums that I just have not forgotten to do, but just albums that I've wanted to do but I wasn't able to do, and so this makes the format a little bit easier. So if you do like this, please let me know, because I'd love to do more of these, because it gives me a time to like interact with you guys, and usually I write more of an outline. Shouts to Megan, but it's always cool to kind of do it off the cuff. Like I said, usually this is like my, like, you can't even see it because it's all white because of my camera, but usually I write stuff down about every track, every song. You know, obviously if you're familiar with the channel, that's typically how I do things, but tonight it's going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to kind of go through my favorites, which ones that I felt like were really good tracks, some that I feel like kind of, you know, fell by the wayside, but overall I'm just going to try to cover up most of the records. So for those of you who can't read, it's Emarosa's newest record, Peach Club, released on Hopeless this past Friday, and it's a great record. I wasn't kind of sold on it initially just because I feel like they really were kind of going real forward in that sort of pop direction. Not to say that that's a bad thing, and even when I interviewed Bradley a while ago, he was saying that, you know, obviously he drew from a lot from he drew a lot from like Michael Jackson, Prince, things of that nature. So I feel like those vibes are definitely in there, and I feel like he has delved a little bit farther away from post-hardcore, from like alternative sorts of music. I think that is a little bit to be desired. I loved 131. It was one of my favorites from a couple years ago, and once they released Givin Up, I was like, okay, maybe there's just maybe there's some tracks that could change up the sound. Obviously still keeping very much with, you know, their original sound as well, but for me it was just kind of like, okay, I appreciate the change, but I feel like they're kind of in the same boat as Bring Me the Horizon for me. They, you know, do some good stuff. I love old Bring Me the Horizon. I love newer Bring Me the Horizon. So I feel like they're one of those bands that stood the test of time. But Emarosa's, you know, been around for a little bit. They obviously had Johnny Craig prior to Bradley joining the band, and so there is a little bit of a sonic change in that. I think Versus, he really kind of wanted to keep, you know, sort of a similar sound to what fans know and love from Emarosa. I feel like 131 is kind of like the happy middle ground, and I feel like this record is finally their record where they're able to create what they want, or at least what Bradley has envisioned. But we're gonna go through the first track, which is Givin Up. Many of you have already heard it already. They released a music video. Shouts to Nathan and his girlfriend Lizzie. They actually did some of the choreography for this music video, so that's super awesome, and I gotta show props and love to some homies. But speaking just outside of the song, I thought the choreographed parts were cool. But getting back to the music, I thought Giving Up was a phenomenal track. I was really surprised at how much I liked it. I feel like for me, it's a little bit more pop centric than I would have expected it to be, just based off of like the sounds that they were originally going off of with 131, but you can kind of hear that sort of pop influence even in that sort of music. So I feel like it wasn't that too far off from, you know, what they typically do. It just maybe a little bit more it has a little bit more funk to it, which I appreciate. I felt like that was a really strong point of this track. I had listened to it a ton before this record, and I feel like as I had listened to the record, I really enjoyed it. It was one of those tracks that, again, really kind of started off the record well. I loved the horn section. I thought that was really cool. There's a little bit of saxophone in there as well, and I really feel like it made the song that much better. I, again, love the sort of funk aspects that they brought to this track. I really feel like, you know, it plays off of their pop sensibility, but also kind of brings a little new fresh flavor to what they're doing. So we're gonna move into track number 2, which is Don't Cry. This is another single that they had released, and I also thought this one was a solid one. I don't think I loved it as much as Giving Up, because it's just, you know, has that great energy to it. It's got that sort of, you know, vibes where you can kind of swing to it. I feel like Don't Cry was a little bit more, you know, indie, has a little bit more of an indie flair to it, but it's still got that sort of pop aspect for what they're going for specifically. I thought it was really solid. I felt like, you know, Bradley kind of takes it back a little bit. There is a little bit more reservation in his voice, and I think you could definitely hear that in Don't Cry. I think it has definitely more of an emotional aspect to it. It's a little bit softer. There's some really cool kind of synths, electronic parts that I feel like kind of is sprinkled throughout this entire record, and I think it's a strong point of what they're going for. Like I said, if they're really pushing for that pop direction, pop alternative direction, I feel like they really kind of nailed it home with this track. Okay, cool. Okay, so sorry, there's a little bit of a disconnection there. I guess my streaming thing is not that great. However, if I don't know how much cut out, so again, I apologize for the cutout in the stream, but I'm gonna just kind of go back a little bit, go back into cautious. So this track I thought was really solid. I love the sort of electronics. I love the synth parts. I really think they bring a lot of strong aspects in this track, more specifically. Again, I'm gonna flip back to this crap. Okay, here we go. I really feel like they brought a lot of strong aspects to this song. It was, I don't believe it was a single, but it was a really solid one. Again, keeping more with this sort of indie flair. I really thought they brought it in this track. I love Bradley's vocals in this track. I thought they were really solid as well. Something that I was, again, pulling from those pop flavors from Michael Jackson, from Prince, from those sorts of artists. I feel like they really did a solid work in that regard. To his credit, I feel like, you know, he's really kind of emulating those sorts of musicians. So I can definitely hear that in the type of songs that they're doing from that nature. So we're gonna move into track number 4, which is Get Back Up. This one is probably one of my favorites, and I'd say that it's up there with Givin' Up as one of the singles. Really solid stuff, because I feel like they definitely brought more of those sort of funk elements back a little bit. Again, I know that they had kind of recycled those, but I think it really works with what's going on with the band and what they're doing. And I love the guitar work in this track. I think it is really solid as well. Something that was also really good, and I would love to hear kind of more of an evolution of what they're going for and Get Back Up. Like I said, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's one that I definitely feel like you should go listen to. So we're gonna move into track number 5, which is So Bad. This one is another great one. I'd also consider this to be one of my favorites as well. I love, again, much like in Giving Up and Get Back Up, I also feel like this one carries along those sort of funk elements as well. I think that there's just a level of like bass in this track that I feel like a lot of the other ones were kind of lacking on. I love the sort of like funky bass lines that remind me a lot of another band that's a little bit smaller but kind of is riding that same sort of wave, a Marionette. If you haven't checked them out, go give them a listen. But I feel like if they kind of continue in that, if Emarosa kind of continues in that direction, it would really benefit their sound. I feel like a lot of fans would definitely enjoy that style, and that sort of crossover of what they're going for. I feel like that plays off of their more alternative side, but also still plays to their pop sensibility as a band as well. So go give that one a listen. So Bad, I definitely feel like, again, Giving Up and So Bad, I feel like are my two favorites currently right now. So we're going to move into track number 6, which is Help You Out. This is another phenomenal track. Again, keeping with the sort of pop sensibility, more of those indie vibes. This one is another really solid track. It's also one of my favorites as well. It just has a bit more aggression to it. Again, playing for the more alternative side of the fence. I feel like this one, again, keeps with that sort of vibe and is really, you know, something that I feel like has become a staple in this sort of record, where they're able to play off more of that alternative, that more kind of punchier sort of guitar riffs. There are some elements of synth as well in this one as well, and I think that they both do those things super solidly, and I like how they incorporate it into their music. I feel like, you know, it plays off of not only Bradley's vocals, but also just kind of the instrumentation that goes behind that as well. Really solid track. Another one of my favorites. So we're going to move into track number 7, which is XO. This one is a little bit different. I think it is going to surprise a lot of people. It's a little bit softer. The guitar phrasings feel, you know, a little bit jazzy, kind of bluesy, which is really cool because I feel like maybe it's a subtle note to his older band, Squid the Whale, maybe not in so much gravitas, but I feel like it is a little bit of an homage to his older band. I didn't really hate this one as much as I feel like people are out to hate this one. I think it's one of the better slower songs off the record, and again, a phenomenal track. It's a little bit short, but I think it's a short but sweet track. I don't think it's one of my favorites just because it is basically just Bradley's vocals and guitar work. But typically, you know, I think I like it generally. So I would definitely consider this one kind of on the fence, but maybe not, you know, in my favorites as of yet. So we're going to move into track number 8, which is Hell of It. This one is probably the most 131-ish track, and I use that term very lightly, but if you're a fan of their older style of music, I feel like this one is one that you're going to definitely enjoy because obviously it plays off of more of their stuff, more of their older sorts of vibes in terms of their music. It has more of a rock flair to it as well, and I think that's why it's so good because they're really able to, you know, kind of combine their sort of pop elements, the rock elements, their sort of middle ground alternative elements, and into one track. So I think it is a phenomenal one. I would definitely put it up there with Get Back Up, So Bad, and Hell of It. Help You Out is another great one if I didn't mention that already. But overall, I think they're all really solid. We're going to move in to track number 9, which is Comfortable. This one's another slower track. I think that the latter half of this record is a little bit slow, in my opinion. It just feels a little bit soft. I would have loved if maybe Hell of It was the last track, because it had that sort of anthematic appeal to it. I think they could have rounded it off on like a real high note, but that may be just my personal preference versus somebody else's. But the overall Comfortable, I think it's a very solid track. I think it plays to a lot of the pop tropes that I hear on the radio, which isn't a bad thing because I think they do a good job of that. But I would love to hear a little bit more experimentation, a little bit more thought process going into it. I don't think it is a bad song, but it's one of those ones that I feel like I'm not as, no pun intended, comfortable with, just because it's a little bit slow. It's a little, especially after Hell of It, I feel like it's kind of a drop in just energy. So maybe it's just a pairing thing, but overall I don't think it's a terrible song. It's just not maybe one that got me right away. So we're gonna move into track number 10, which I'm not even gonna try to say the name of it because I have no clue what it means, but it is a solid track. This one is probably the most poppy track. It feels the most radio friendly. And I could imagine this being on a local radio station either near me or just on like a local pop radio station. I feel like that's their ultimate goal, is to have a track on the radio. And this one will definitely be a good one to have on there because either that or I'd say Givin Up is probably another really good one. I think they really kind of hone in on that sort of pop vibe, and they really kind of narrow it down on this track in particular. I wasn't also a fan of this one as well. I do like the energy shift as well, though. I think it kind of picks it up a little bit, but overall I wasn't really feeling this one either. So we're gonna move into the last track, track number 11, Wait, comma, Stay. This one is another really solid track. I think this is another favorite of mine, just out of the sort of slowness. I think it really works with, again, their sort of pop vibes. I think it kind of matches up well with XO, and that was another reason why I liked XO too. I felt like the softer vibes of what they're doing really work in either of those tracks, and I feel like they were able to kind of hone in that sort of softer pop sound, but still kind of keeping that Emarosa flair. I think Bradley's vocals sound phenomenal on this track, and this one has a little bit more airiness. It has a little bit more breath to it, and I think that's what really makes this track, one of those standout sort of softer tracks, even though I was maybe not particularly a fan of the latter half of this record. So some pros and cons. I feel like it's a solid record if you're a fan of sort of pop. If you're a fan of more alternative stuff and this is the first time that you're hearing about this band, I would highly recommend checking out 131. I think it's a cool energy shift. I think overall, I think what they were trying to do and what they actually did were really close, I would say. I'm, again, not the biggest radio pop fan, but I keep my ear out to it every once in a while. But I feel like this one could definitely be radio friendly. It can be on the radio, and I feel like that's what they're ultimately trying to do, is get bigger fans so that they can be out and doing more like pop related tours, and I think that really vibes with what they're going for. I don't think they'll completely abandon older Emarosa stuff, but I feel like this is kind of the shifting of the guard, as they would say. So I think it is solid. I think definitely the first half of the record, I'd say maybe 1 through 6 are really solid from front to back. I think the latter half of the record, while there are some gems in there, I think overall it's a little bit slower. I think the breaks would have been a little bit better, and I think personally, I think the album would have done a lot better if there was maybe a track that kind of, besides Hell of It, I feel like if there was another track that kind of was the middle ground between 131 and Peach Club, I think it would have been a little bit better. I think it would have ranked a little bit higher for me, and I think that I would have enjoyed it just a little bit more in that regard. So curious what you guys think about the record. I'm curious what you think about doing these live things. Again, sorry for this sort of technical mishap, but I really enjoyed this record. I think it was very solid, and I think it's a good stepping stone for what they're doing next in terms of pop and more alternative based music. It really showed off Bradley's skills as a vocalist, and not to say that it wasn't in 131, but I think he really is able to enjoy and like what he does on this record as maybe opposed to 131 or Versus or things of that nature. So I'm curious, again, what you guys think about it. I thought it was a solid effort. So my overall rating for Emarosa's Peach Club, I'm going to be giving it a 9.4 out of 10. I think it is one that you should definitely go check out. If you're more of a fan of pop music, go check this one out. But if you are an older fan of Emarosa, I would go into it with an open mind because it is a bit different. It does have a bit of getting used to because there is electronics. there is a little bit more of a funk element. I would love to hear more of that in the future. I think that if they kind of continue down like sort of a funky pop direction, they would be phenomenal. So you're welcome for that. But anyway, I think it is a really good record. I don't think it's their best work, but I think that is a very close second, if I'm going to be honest, because I do love older Emarosa, but I know that's never going to come back. At least I know with this stuff, it will stick around, and I know that they'll continue to play 131, so I'm always really stoked on that. Comment below what you think about it. If you joined me for the live thing, again, sorry for the mishap. If you want me to do more of these, please let me know. I'd love to kind of do maybe like a roundup thing. I know that Megan had kind of outlined it. It would be cool if I just had kind of like a weekly roundup thing. I might consider doing that in the future if people are interested in it. So definitely let me know what you think about it. And if you enjoyed this kind of spontaneous review, make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button so you get notified of when new things come out. And I have a ton of live sets. I have some interviews to be posting, and some awesome, really cool album reviews and things of that nature coming up very soon. So thank you guys for watching this little, album review thing. Hopefully you like my thought process. Usually I'm a little bit more thought out. I usually have more of a thought process going on with my reviews, but this one I felt like I wanted to do more of a spontaneous one. So if you like my sort of off the cuff sort of thought process, feel free to let me know, because maybe I might do more of these in the future. So thank you guys for watching. Again, plenty of new stuff to be coming in the 2019. So definitely keep your eyes peeled, and thank you guys for watching tonight. Check out the new Emarosa records, links in the description. Talk to you later, guys. Peace.